Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight is going to be sort of an exploration into uh, some red flags and doubts. And I'm happy to see that I'm not the only person raising red flags on this Dave Grusch quote, UFO whistleblower, unquote, story. Um, and I was interested to see that some opinions of people that most people would consider experts in the field of UFOs are also finding red flags with Mr. Grusch's story. Um, for those unaware, we will be discussing and talking about some recent comments that Mr. Kevin Randle made on the Martin Willis show. And interestingly, I think that this interview and these comments sort of got lost in the ether. But when I heard what he had to say, I thought it was so important that we would. I'm going to be playing you the clips and we will be talking about it. Well, not the clips. We will be going over what he said during this interview specific to Mr. Dave Grusch and his story. It's important. I'm getting attacked already for doing this today, which is interesting to me because apparently some stupid people don't think that the opinion of someone who has investigated UFOs for 30 years, who's written over 100 books, many of them on actual UFO crash retrieval cases. Oh, his opinion's not important. And there's a reason that people are attacking me saying that. And it's because Mr. Randle, in his comments recently, I believe his opinions and comments raise some very serious doubts about the story of Mr. Dave Grusch. And I'm sorry if you don't like my opinions, and I'm sorry if you don't like Mr. Randle's opinions. However, is it not relevant that a guy who has written 100 books, most of which are on UFOs, many of which are on UFO crash retrieval cases, is it not important that he is seeing some of the same red flags that we have raised here? I think it's extremely important that when an incredible researcher, author, and historian, really, of UFO stories and cases chimes in and casts some major doubt on this story, I think it's extremely relevant. I think it's extremely important, and we should recognize that it's more than just a few people seeing these red flags, raising these red flags, and talking about them. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. For those unaware, Kevin Randle has been researching and writing books on UFOs for many, many years. Probably he is most famous for the Roswell case. He has several books on the Roswell case specifically, as well as other books on actual UFO crash cases and retrievals. Here's a book on Blue Book. Project Moondust is specifically all about crash retrievals. Project Moondust, for those unaware, was a crash retrieval program of the United States government. So to the people who are so angry that we're doing this tonight, we're talking about what Mr. Randle said, all I can tell you is if you will put your blinders on and put those earplugs in, no, Kevin Randle is raising red. I don't want to hear what he has to say. And then, of course, people in these nasty messages I'm getting and nasty tweets are disparaging me, disparaging Mr. Randle. And it's so stupid and so petty what some people are saying. In this interview, he said that the interview was on Newsmax, not News Nation. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Come on. You've never misspoken the name of a media outlet during a live interview? It's so petty and so ridiculous that some of these cultic true believers will do anything to disparage people who are even just asking questions, right? And let's also examine another thing that's very important. When you seek media attention as a media personality, as Dave Grusch did, you are inviting scrutiny. You are inviting people to ask questions about your story. You are inviting public discourse. And that, my friends, is all that we are doing here. We are providing public discourse. We are examining the story and trying to get to the bottom of it. And we'll continue to do that. So one of the other things is that Mr. Randle has been a guest here in the past, and someone has already accused me of lying because Mr. Randle will not be here tonight. So if you're here to see a live interview of Mr. Randle, I understand that. You can click off, go somewhere else. It wasn't my intention to mislead anybody. In fact, I amended the thumbnail to say that we will be covering what was said on Mr. Martin Willis' show by Kevin Randle. Mr. Randle has been a guest here on our show in the past. I'm sure he will be a guest here in the future. I didn't want to ask him to come here. What was I supposed to do? Say, you know, all that stuff you already said on this other show, can you come to my show and just say the same stuff again? I didn't want to bother him, but this did give me an excellent idea. So this weekend, I will be reaching out to Don Schmidt, Tom Carey, Kevin Randle, and a few others who have written or researched UFO crash retrievals. And we're going to ask them to all come here. And we're going to do a special panel just on UFO crash retrievals with some of the world's leading experts, authors, and researchers on crash retrievals. We'll talk in general about UFO crash retrieval cases, the history, and so on. And then I will be asking each of these world-renowned authors, researchers, and experts on UFO crash retrievals their opinion of Mr. Grusch's story. So, yeah, I didn't want to ask him to come here. Hey, can we do a rerun of that show you were already on? No, we'll play it. We'll do some commentary. We'll take comments and questions from the live chat as we do that. But before we begin with tonight's presentation, I already see that I'm wearing the right shirt for tonight, because before the show even started, Sandra McDonald with kind and generous $2.99 Australian. And thank you also for being a YouTube channel member. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. Let me check to see if we got any more to call out before we begin. No. So we welcome everyone here in the live chat. Yeah, Plan B, great idea. Mr. Ian says epic. Yeah, I'm not sure if they'll all agree, but we'll get as many people here as we can, as many experts as we can, because I think if we had a whole panel of these guys all on one show, it would be awesome. And I, for one, have an intense interest in UFO crash retrieval cases. Unfortunately, many of them turn out to be fake, like the Trinity UFO case, like the Aztec UFO crash case. Many of these so-called UFO crash cases turn out to be fake. So, I kind of would appreciate and benefit from the knowledge and experience of people who have written books on these cases, who have studied this phenomenon of so-called UFO crashes and crash retrievals. Another person that comes to mind is Stan Gordon, who is considered one of the experts on the Kecksburg case. And believe it or not, he was the first person Stan Gordon was the first person that I ever interviewed. Haven't talked to him in a while. I'll reach out to him this weekend as well. He's been a guest here several times. Kevin Randle has learned the hard way that unverified claims and evidence needs to be approached with skepticism. Yeah. And here's another reason that I was going to mention. Thank you for that, Steve Long. Thank you for reminding me. One of the other reasons that I really like and respect Kevin Randle is because Kevin Randle has been duped He's been fooled before by witnesses telling him fairy tales. And he learned the hard way that you really have to verify people's claims. You don't just accept testimony. But one of the other reasons why I like and respect Mr. Randle is because he has the ability to change his mind. When he gets new evidence, if it refutes old evidence, he'll change his opinion. And I found it very interesting that besides his comments on Dave Grusch in this interview we'll be talking about tonight, he also mentioned that he once was kind of all chips in that Roswell was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but his opinions have kind of changed on that. And I like that he has the ability to change his mind. He doesn't write a book and then say, I'm sticking with that opinion for the rest of my life. He's able to, as we all should be, change his opinion and his determination or conclusions about cases based on new and emerging evidence. I think that's very healthy because we have all seen the double and triple down that some of these people do when they get caught with a fake witness or a fake story. They can't admit it. They cannot admit it. And they double down, triple down. They won't admit that they made a mistake. Kevin Randle admits that he's made some mistakes. And that makes him more human to me because we're all human. We all make mistakes. I just like that the guy has the ability to change his mind. So we're going to put our fair use banner up here. This is because this is a transformative work. We're educating the public and we're critiquing the video that we will be sharing. This is covered, of course, under fair use. You in the audience can also help me make it a transformative work by putting comments in all capital letters, which we'll share while we're previewing this video, and that will help to make it a transformative work. We'll also be taking comments and questions from the live chat about the video that we're sharing, and we will certainly be critiquing and discussing the information presented and using this video for educational purposes. All of these things make this a work of fair use. So let's get into it, friends. And I want to thank the user, by the way, who sent me this interview. I would probably have missed this. But somebody sent it to me with timestamps. They didn't want to be named, but they know who they are. So thank you very much. I'm glad that I was able to get this because I think it is an important, I think that this guy being such an expert on UFO crash retrievals and the things that he's saying in this interview, raising these red flags and casting what I think is casting major doubt on Dave Grusch's story. I think this is important. I didn't want it to be lost in the ether of all the content on the internet. So happy to bring it to you. This is Kevin Randle's whistleblower opinion. And remember that Mr. Randle has been a UFO investigator for many, many years, and he has sort of specialized in UFO crash retrievals, not just Roswell. He has investigated many other so-called UFO crash retrievals. So interesting to see. I was incredibly interested to see what he had to say. Let's get into it, friends.
Wow. Interesting. All right. Well, let's go to it. What do you think about the whole David Grusch whistleblower situation?
I'm very worried about it. I actually talked to Jerry Clark about that. Talked to him. We emailed back and forth about it. He said we need to be cautious because we don't have all the information and we shouldn't be really drawing solid conclusions prior to getting all the information. But there are some red flags that we need to be aware of.
Yeah. I keep hearing the term red flags. I did a piece you might find interesting on our channel here, 10 red flags about David Grusch's story. Stephen Greenstreet did a piece. He concentrated on the 3 most important red flags about David Grusch. Now we've got Kevin Randle talking about red flags. Yeah, there's a lot of red flags.
Grusch said that he won't reveal his sources. Who told him this stuff? He says he has documentation, but they're still classified and he can't let them out. Excuse me, you've already blown the whistle on this. Letting out the documents is not going to harm you any more than you're already harmed.
No, is that so? So he can take classified documents now and release them and he can't get...
He supposedly has classified documents. I don't know why he would have them. If they were once classified and then declassified, well, then there's really no problem.
Yeah, and there seems to be an awful lot of confusion about the documents, their classification status, whether they are still classified, whether they are whether he is able to release them or not. But I, for one, find it incredibly convenient. Well, I've got all these documents. I've got all this proof of what I'm saying, but I can't show it to any of you. I showed it to Congress. Okay.
Right.
But if they're still classified and he has possession of them, then he's in violation of any number of regulations.
Yeah, and that's another point. Is he allowed to be in possession of classified documents after he is no longer an employee of the United States government? Wouldn't he lose his right to possess classified documents? That's another red flag to me. How is he able to be in possession of classified documents? This is problematic.
But that's my understanding, and that's what he said. Well, I have these documents. I haven't been given permission to release them. I think this is what he says.
Oh, I didn't hear him actually say that phrase. He said that during the long interview?
He has made that comment elsewhere, I think. He's talked about how he is
I agree, Randy.
Permission to release the documents. But we don't, but the point simply is he hasn't released them.
Well, here's something here, a little by Bo.
He definitely
testified to
Chuck.
Congress. And just to make the point, if he was under oath and he was lying, his butt would be in big trouble.
Yeah, and here's another total misconception that people are taking as proof that he's telling the truth. I've heard 100 people tell me he testified before Congress, and if he was lying, he would get arrested. And he hasn't been arrested, so he must have told them the truth. No, not at all. And Mr. Randle explains this as I have, but better.
If he truly believed what he said and it was untrue, meaning he didn't realize it was untrue, then he's not lying. He's merely carrying misinformation to its source. I mean, there's a fine line you walk there between lying and repeating information you believe to be the truth.
Yeah, and I agree with him. You can't be charged with perjury unless there is a willful intent to deceive. So if Mr. Grusch was given information by, I don't know, Eric Davis, Gary Nolan, Lou Elizondo, and Hal Puthoff, for example, and that information turned out to be false information, kind of like that hoaxed 1930s case that's completely fake, he can't be charged with perjury because he's simply repeating things that he was told that he believed to be accurate.
So if he truly believes this stuff, and I get the impression he truly believes what he's saying there, I'm just worried about the sources of that information.
I agree, Brandy.
And
it would have to be. I'm just thinking, and I'm understanding what you're saying. It was one of the questions I asked Ralph Blumenthal when I had him on. And it just seems like it would have to be so involved with so many people, apparently, not that I know for sure, but it would just seem like it would be such an elaborate thing. And why would they do that?
Well, there's your
in
question
your opinion.
Why would who do what?
Why would they be feeding him disinformation?
I don't think it's disinformation. What I understand, and please, this is my understanding, and I haven't been really called out on any of this yet.
Yeah, and this is where it gets a little confusing.
He would be talking to friends, and they would tell him stuff about these sorts of things. The problem I have with this, if you are involved with classified materials, especially highly classified, top secret materials, you do not discuss it with those who are not cleared to hear it. And you must assume that everybody around you who's not involved in this particular project is not cleared to hear it.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm all for government transparency, but it is true. If I, for example, was involved in a secret project and I'm not allowed to speak about it to anyone, full stop, unless I am 100% certain that they're cleared to have access to the information regarding that program. Now, Ivana Rios, is asking a very important question. If they're all lying, why do you think there would be, why do you think would be the same reason for all this operation with Elizondo, Mellon, and all of that people involved? Well, it gets very complicated, but what I will say is that Elizondo and Mellon have literally tried to profit from things before that aren't what they said it was. Remember those 3 videos in TTSA? You know, we were essentially told this is disclosure. These things defy the laws of physics. This thing's, you know, like the Go Fast video. It was going 40 miles an hour. It wasn't going at nearly Mach 1 as they claimed. I think that there may be a great deal of true believers who truly believe that things are aliens when they're not, and there is a prosaic explanation. And the people that may be feeding this Mr. Grusch information may simply believe it themselves and be misinformed. And, you know, other people have talked about the possibility that perhaps some people have had access to some kind of crash retrieval programs. They didn't understand the materials involved that were recovered that may be Chinese or Russian or Indian or some adversarial country's technology that we're just not informed of, and they might have thought this is alien technology. And you know, people talk, rumors get spread, and it may simply be a lot of misidentification, kind of like Lou Elizondo and Mellon misidentified those 3 videos as something extraordinary when they were not.
So I don't know why they're bringing him these tales unless it's unclassified material. And if it's unclassified material, then it's not that important, because we have an awful lot of unclassified material out there floating around about UFO crashes and MJ-12 and documentation and all kinds of other things. So I worry about that. I worry about the claim that they would bring him, or he would see these things that are highly classified. And yeah, people make mistakes and people reveal classified material by mistake all the time. I've been out all the time, but periodically. I know, was it McGeorge Bundy, who was a high-ranking member of the Johnson administration, I believe, inadvertently revealed a code word to reporters. He had a document in his hand with the code word on it. You know, say top secret, and would give the code word.
Yeah, things leak by accident all the time.
That, so they realized what the code word was. So he inadvertently released the code word, which was classified in and of itself. So that these sorts of mistakes are made, but you don't generally.
Yeah, and there's another issue here, and that is that there's an awful lot of people that are saying, like, I got told what the program names are, but I can't tell you. Well, even the name of a program, if it's classified, is by definition classified. You know, for example, if I worked for, you know, secret project butt fluffer for the United States government, I couldn't tell people the name of the program I'm working on is butt fluffer. You can't do that. So there's an awful lot of people using these veils of secrecy, I think, to grift and say, oh, I'm in on the secrets. I know the name of the programs. Great, then drop them, because it would be illegal for anybody even to tell you the name of the programs. You know, and I think that we're going to see a review of classification procedures throughout the entire United States government because of all of this stuff, because of Elizondo and Mellon apparently bending the rules and taking videos that weren't cleared for public release out of the Pentagon, allegedly. And because of Grusch and all of these other people saying that they're, you know, or especially because of Corbell. Like, if I don't understand what's going on with Corbell, this still that we're releasing, this still image that we're releasing was part of a video that was from a classified briefing, but it's not classified. It doesn't make any sense what some of these people are doing from a perspective of national security and classifications. It just doesn't make any sense.
Really get into gossip with people who are not cleared to hear the information. So I don't understand this at all. But he did say a couple of things in the long form interview that was interesting. He talked about this 1933 crash in Italy, which I'd never heard of. And I've been researching UFO crashes for literally decades.
Magenta, I believe, or something like that.
But that case was debunked by Italian researchers 2 decades ago. And
and there you have it. Mr. Randle spent some time after hearing about this program excuse me, after hearing about this so-called crash retrieval case in Italy. And remember, this is one of the provers for Dave Grusch. Dave Grusch said that he was briefed about this 1930s UFO crash retrieval case from Italy. Well, who's briefing him about a debunked fake UFO case that was debunked 20 years ago? And I am certain that Elizondo has told other people. Lou Elizondo has told people about that fake case. He just left out the part where the case is completely fake, and even the original researchers on the case declared it a hoax. Very problematic that Dave Grusch is saying that somebody in the United States government briefed me on this Italian UFO crash from the 1930s, and it's a fake case. That's extremely problematic and a huge red flag.
He's talking about this case from Italy in 1933 where the fascist Mussolini recovered parts of a flying saucer or a mostly intact saucer, and he moved it to an airfield, brought the Pope into it, Pope Pius the 12th, Pope Pius some number into it. And the Pope was worried about the fascists having this information and leaked it to the Americans. And once the war was over, we recovered the debris. And there were documents supposedly released in relation to this.
Good point, Jewel Chicky.
This stuff. And what happened is
You're
they
right,
did an
Siren
investigation into the documentation, and it's the same thing we had with the MJ-12.
Daniel's here. Welcome, Daniel.
Any of the sources. They don't know what the sources are. The claim sources, an archive that supposedly released some of the documents doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And we just got all this. I just got all this information in last week, and I'm completing a posting for my blog that outlines this. But when we look.
Yeah. So Mr. Randle has a very popular blog in the UFO world, and he really deep dive and investigates cases. So he has gathered all of the proof. This is also very, very important. Mr. Randle has gathered all the important proof that this so-called UFO crash retrieval case in the 1930s is completely fictitious. It's fake. It's a hoax. It's a made-up fake story. And he'll be posting it on his blog. Maybe I will reach out to him and ask him to come and just explain that case to us. This is very important. Why is a so-called whistleblower who has access to real information talking about fake, debunked, completely fake, 100% fake UFO cases from the 1930s that were investigated and debunked as fake 20 years ago? There was documents associated with this case that turned out to be fake. They were supposed to be released from some Italian archive that doesn't exist. It's a made up, the whole story is made up. Why is Dave Grusch purposefully, or perhaps unintentionally, I shouldn't say purposefully, language is important. Why is Dave Grusch intentionally or unintentionally including completely fake hoax cases when he talks about crash retrievals being real? This is a huge red flag. Huge red flag that he's talking about a case and being briefed on a case by government officials. Why would government officials be briefing him on a completely fictitious case based on completely fictitious, false, fraud created documents? That was the only proof of the case, some documents that turned out to be fake. So huge red flag here. And I'm looking forward to Mr. Randle's breakdown on that case. I considered trying to do it myself. I'm sure he has better contacts and will do a much better job than I.
Look at that sort of information. So I would assume, I would believe that the people who were talking about this 1933 crash in the hearing, in the range of crash, would have known all aspects of it. I think Timothy Good talked about it in one of his books.
He did.
And there were a number of articles published 20 years ago. And I have access to the articles. They're published in Italian. And just Friday,
Yeah, Mr. Randall got the original articles on the case translated to English so he could research them, and good for him.
No, Sunday, just Sunday, I got copies of the articles translated into English from our colleagues in Italy. Eduardo Russo, I think, provided them to us, and so I put together a long form about this crash. But if Grusch believes this crash really took place and he related this to Congress, well, he's not lying.
Yeah, and here's where it also gets problematic. Does anybody remember that Lou Elizondo and crew went to Italy for UFO conferences and things, and to lobby, I guess, the Italian government to do something about UFOs? And suddenly this Grusch, who's already been connected to him, according to Brian Bender, Dave Grusch was mentored by or groomed for this whistleblowing by Lou Elizondo, and this case, which Lou Elizondo has told others about, is included in his story. I find that more than a little bit suspicious, and we thank the Context for kind of generous $7.99 Australian, saying praise the cash. Yes, I have the right shirt on for this today. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, longtime show supporter and friend of the show, The Context, Daniel. Praise the cash, friends. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. So I'm entitled to my opinion, and I think this case came to Dave Grusch from Lou Elizondo. And until I'm proven otherwise, that's what I will believe.
He believes it to be a real thing, and he's not fully aware of all the other things. If you look up the 1933 Italian crash on the internet, you don't get much in the way of information. There's not a lot of information out there in the American environment.
And that's true, because I tried to Google and find everything I could on this case, and I got not very far at all. So there could be a reason why people didn't know it was fake. You'd have to speak Italian to know that the case was debunked over 20 years ago. And the people pushing that story of a UFO crash retrieval apparently didn't speak Italian and or didn't do enough research to determine the validity of the case before including it in their fantastic story about UFO crash retrievals. Huge red flag that they're including a completely fake case for sort of proof. You know, Dave Grusch in his interview, these UFO crashes, they go back to 1930s. There was one in Italy and the Vatican was involved. No, the case is fake. And that also sheds doubt on the discernment ability of Mr. Grusch. If he didn't know that case is fake, how does he not know that all the information that he was given was fake? This is extremely problematic.
But a number of the groups I belong to and subscribe to have access to people all around the world, and they just said this thing was exposed more than 2 decades ago. So it makes you wonder about the credibility of his information.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the credibility of his information. If he didn't know that case was fake, and he even talked about it in an interview as if it was 100% real, true case, how do we know that the rest of his information isn't just as fake? And I, for one, am getting tired of these storytellers. You got to come with some evidence or don't make the claims, right? And what about so-called investigative journalist Ross Coulthart? How come Kevin Randle could research that case and quickly determine that the case was fake, but Ross Coulthart couldn't? Or maybe Ross Coulthart did, and it didn't fit his narrative, so they just glossed over it. But knowing Ross Coulthart, if he was smart enough to actually research that case and determine it was fake, he would have cut it from the interview, and they didn't. So somebody didn't do their due diligence. Oh, that's right. The people selling everybody this story didn't do the work. Why does it take Kevin Randle to do the work? Why was he able to determine that case was a hoax 30 years ago and Ross Coulthart couldn't, Leslie Kane couldn't, Ralph Blumenthal couldn't, and the debrief? How many people work for the debrief? They couldn't research that case and find out it was fake and let everybody know? Oh, by the way, he's talking about this Italian case that's fake in their original article, in the original story. No, but this, welcome to UFO land, where people tell their stories, and then, you know, it takes real researchers to get in there and do the job that the people making all the money should have done in the first place, but did not. They didn't do the work. Didn't fit the narrative.
And then the other thing I heard, and I have not been able to verify this yet, so I don't know if it's true or not, that he was involved in some fashion at Skinwalker Ranch. And Jerry cautioned me, well, don't smear him with this idea he was involved in Skinwalker Ranch. And I'm saying the point is not that he was there, and he may have been there for a couple of days. It's the people who were there that he would have come in contact with.
Yeah, and who would he have come in contact with that were also heavily involved in Skinwalker Ranch? Who would that be? Oh, the usual cast of characters who have been telling these same stories about UFOs and crash retrievals and bodies for how many years now, and have never proven any of it.
Who may have fed him some of this other information. People who allegedly have high government positions talking about things. One of them would have been Eric Davis, who is on the record. I heard him, I don't know if it was on Coast to Coast or one of the other shows, talking about how the Del Rio crash was real. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. And I've known that for literally 15 years.
Yeah. So here we have Eric Davis, who is directly connected to Dave Grusch, saying that another UFO crash is real when it's not. It's completely and totally not. And no offense, but if I have to choose between whose opinion I trust more, Eric Davis or Kevin Randle, a man who's been researching UFO crashes and UFOs for 30 plus years, I'll take Mr. Randle as far as opinion goes. And Eric Davis is one of the people directly connected to Dave Grusch, who believes literally anything he's told. Even Travis Taylor has said that if somebody tells Eric Davis a story, he believes it's true. He has no discernment whatsoever. So is Eric Davis one of the people feeding Dave Grusch information, right? Here is another fake story that Eric Davis promotes as a true story that is completely and totally fake.
Based on my research and the disintegration of the tales told by Robert Willingham, who claimed he was an Air Force fighter pilot, that he had risen to colonel in the Air Force. I got his military records. He had risen to the rank of E4, rather low-ranking enlisted man. He was technically a veteran of World War II. He entered the service in December of 1945. The war was not declared over officially until the middle of 1946. The shooting had ended, obviously, in September of 45. So Willingham was technically a veteran of World War II. He was on duty from December of 1945 through January of 1947, 13 months, was in E4. Claimed he went to flight school, claimed he was a fighter pilot, claimed he was promoted to full colonel by Lyndon Johnson, which the way he tells it was a story right out of Webb Griffin's.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're right,
I think it was the Brotherhood of War Stories books that he wrote, where a guy got promoted by presidential directive, and so Willingham was claiming that Lyndon Johnson had done that in 1976. Of course, Johnson wasn't the president; he died in January, so it's very unlikely that happened.
Yeah. So in other words, Eric Davis is promoting a UFO crash retrieval story as true that was told by a total BS artist. There's no other way to say it. The guy claimed that he got promoted by a president that wasn't even in office at the time he claimed he got promoted. And these people don't do any work before they just decide a case is true. We've seen it time and time again. And so, pardon me for saying that if this guy is connected to Eric Davis is probably feeding him completely fake stories. If he's connected to the people that are connected to Skinwalker Ranch, that's a huge red flag. If he's connected to Lou Elizondo, who lied literally for years. And hey, I'm aware he got a GQ Hero Award for lying to everybody, but GQ sucks because they didn't do anything. They didn't give him an award. Hey, You're a hero. Did GQ know that he lied to everybody for years about a Pentagon program that never existed? These are the people in Dave Grusch's neighborhood, right? And it's wonderful.
Claimed he was badly wounded in Korea, so they took him out of fighters. He couldn't fly fighters in the
we're still on
forces anymore, but he went into
fake
the Air
Eric
Force
Davis
Reserve
crash
fighters.
case.
I have a lot of friends in the Air Guard, and I asked him about that, and he said, no, the problem with if you're disqualified from flying fighters, it's because, but one of the reasons might be that you cannot withstand the forces of the ejection. If something goes wrong and you have to eject. And from what Willingham was talking about, those forces would have come into play. So he had left the active force and joined the reserve so he can continue to fly fighters. Untrue. The one thing that I point out, which my experience helps with, is I know of no military pilot who has ever gotten an FAA pilot's license who did not get a commercial license. And I say that because according to the FAA regulations, and I use this regulation in my...
Yeah, for those unaware, Kevin Randle is a career pilot, military pilot. I believe that he even re-enlisted to go fly in Desert Storm and associated Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
My benefit. If you went to a military flight school and graduated from that military flight school, and you had more than 200 hours of flight time, and when I graduated from flight school, we had 210 hours. You could go to the FAA, take a 50-question test, and you'd be issued a commercial pilot's license. Willingham had a private pilot's license, not as important as a commercial license. I didn't get mine until I got back from Vietnam, and I had like 1,200 hours of flight time, or more than that, 1,100 in combat flight time. So,
wow.
I got back. I took the test. I didn't pass with a really high grade, but who cares, because I passed. I'm not going to take it again to raise the...
Yeah, that's like that old saying, C's get degrees, right?
grade. I got my commercial pilot's license, but I know of no military pilot who took the test and took the time to do that, got a private pilot's license. But that was all that Willingham had, was a private pilot's license. That argues against what he said. This is a long, involved way of looking at the vetting process. And
vetting is extremely important.
Davis, who may have been at the Skinwalker Ranch, and it may be Davis who talked to Grusch about the Del Rio crash. If he in fact talked about the Del Rio crash, he won't tell us what
he looks like a pilot. Yeah, he does.
He knows about other than Roswell and this 1933 crash.
Yes, he was.
And I have speculated based on this rumor, the suggestion that Grusch had been to Skinwalker Ranch, and I know who was there, and it could put him in touch with some of the people whose stories we have had a chance to vet, and they're not all that great. So I worry about that, and that raises red flags with me. Does that mean that Grusch is not telling the truth? No, it means that there are some problems here, which we could remedy easily.
Yeah, here's how we could remedy it very, very easily.
If he would provide us with some of the sources. Who told you this stuff? Do you have any of the documentation that goes with it?
Well, supposedly, there is someone that's going to also join, I don't know, as a witness or a whistleblower that was more involved. Now, I don't know.
Yeah, and this is the old game. The old game of the UFO grift is that if you come out with a fantastic story, just say you have evidence and that more evidence is coming. That's what we're hearing. More evidence is coming. Well, it's been 2 weeks. Where's the evidence? It's been 2 weeks. We don't have any evidence. There is none. But there's an awful lot of red flags, and more red flags keep popping up. We thank you, Larry Love, for the kind and generous $1.99 super chat. I have one. Is anybody telling the truth? Anybody? Well, I think people are doing their best to get to the truth, but thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. Yeah, so lots of red flags in the past 2 weeks, including why were so many things left out? Why would Ross Coulthart forget to mention in his original story that him and Dave Grusch and Gary Nolan were meeting with members of Canadian Parliament a few weeks before they aired that interview? Why would he leave that out? Wouldn't that help the add legitimacy to it? Why would they leave that out? And why did Ross Coulthart not allow or try to stop Gary Nolan and Dave Grusch from telling the Canadian Member of Parliament certain things, because they had to save that for the documentary? Apparently, Dave Grusch already has a documentary deal. With who? These are important questions that demand answers, but we're getting no answers. We're getting obfuscation, more deception, more kick the can. And here we have, claims that another person is going to come forward with the evidence and back up Mr. Grusch's claims. When are we going to get that?
Know if that's just a rumor I've heard. I don't know for sure, but that would be key to cracking this whole thing open. If
that would be very important, but at this point that hasn't happened, so we can't say, well, there's more whistleblowers coming. But we've been through this many times.
And this is important, and this is why we need to understand the history of the UFO community, because all of this has happened before and it will all happen again. This is not the first time that a highly decorated military or intelligence community source came forward with big claims, but then they all inevitably never provide the evidence that proves their claims to be 100% factually correct. Never. We saw it with Philip Corso. We've seen it with Sergeant Clifford Stone and many others. We've been here before.
We went through this with the MJ-12 documents, for crying out loud. Here's these documents. We got them from the government. And the news media spent time investigating those and talking with the people who had them and all of this sort of thing. And it all blew up. The alien autopsy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We had a big press conference in London announcing these films and showing a little bit of the footage. And we were talking about how there were 2.5 hours of footage and Truman seen walking the crash site.
And the alien autopsy film is a cautionary tale of the overpromise and underdeliver. Mr. Randle is correct. When they had that original London press conference, they said there was over 2 hours of footage, and it even included like the president walking through the crash site. Did we ever see any of that footage? Of course not. You know why? Because it didn't exist. They were overhyping, claiming that they had evidence that they didn't have. And this is all too common in the UFO world. People make claims. We can't just simply believe claims. We have to believe evidence.
With cranes in the background and all of this stuff. And when we get down to it, that's crap. We had the Roswell slides, what went on for months.
Yeah.
Here's a picture.
The Roswell slides was a great case that was a completely and totally fake, overhyped story by Jaime Maussan, Richard Dolan, and others. And yeah, I will never let Richard Dolan forget that he participated in one of the biggest UFO hoaxes ever. Hundreds of thousands of dollars was stolen from people for a completely and totally fake, made-up story, right? And Larry Love, with a kind and generous $1.99 again, says David rushed the story because of the vetting. Yeah, the New York Post, or excuse me, the New York Times, apparently or allegedly, and the Washington Post and the Hill and many other media outlets passed on the story because they were being rushed and they wanted to vet the guy, vet his claims, get some evidence, and they were unable to do that in a short period of time. So the story ends up on essentially an internet blog. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate you.
Sure. We know this blurred picture we got, and we finally got a decent copy of the picture. We were able to identify exactly where it was and what it was in 48 hours.
Yeah. And the Roswell slides hoax is a perfect example of the scummy dirtballs that are selling the fake story, withholding information. The placard on this slide that apparently or allegedly depicted an alien body from Roswell, that's how it was sold, was blurred out. As soon as they released a clearer version of the picture, within, I think it was a couple of days, people figured out that this was a mummy in a museum. But by then, the people who sold the completely fake story had made hundreds of thousands of dollars in a pay-per-view event, and they never gave any of the money back.
Remember that. I was there right at the whole, I was involved in that whole thing, and right while that was happening. And I remember I was so disappointed when I saw, when that image popped up. I just couldn't believe it. Not that I knew exactly that it was for sure anything, but it certainly wasn't, you know, it certainly looked like a mummy to me.
What
You know,
happened?
not like I'm a specialist or anything, but, you know, I mean,
After it came out and Tom Carey was talking about photographs, you know, Tom Carey kind of released this. And so I'm thinking, well, if it's not a real alien, where would they get the picture? What would be the picture of? The picture was clearly taken in 1948. The picture was clearly taken. Yeah, that's
a picture. It's small, but there it is. Yeah.
Picture was, the film, the slide film was clearly from the right time frame. The mounting was clearly the right time frame. The testing suggests it was 1948. So where would somebody in 1948 get something like this? And I thought, well, science fiction movies. But I've got a couple of nice resources on science fiction films. And in the 1940s, when they had aliens, they were always humans in bizarre costumes. I mean,
yeah. And by the way, for those unaware of the Roswell slides hoax, the people running the hoax, Jaime Maussan and others, tried to get Roswell authors and researchers on board to help promote it as a genuine slide of a picture of an alien from Roswell. And people like Don Schmidt, who's been a guest here previously, and Tom Carey, who's also been a guest here previously, sort of got roped in, and they were used, and their legitimacy as researchers was used to help sell the story as true. And I remember I've talked to both Tom Carey and Don Schmidt about this exact hoax. They were both very upset that they were manipulated and used the way that they were, you know, because they got behind it thinking it was real, because they too were withheld the clear version of the picture, which would anybody, if they had the clear version, would be able to tell what that was instantly.
Strangely, but they were clearly human. There was nothing like that. And so I said to Tom before the big reveal, I said, could it be a mummy? And he said, no, we've looked for no mummies and we couldn't find one that matches. And but within hours,
it was an interesting hoax.
Quality copy of the placard. There was a placard on it in front of the case. There was a little placard that couldn't be read because it was blurred. And I think what happened was,
they purposefully blurred it.
The people who owned the slide, when they put out the original story, they kind of blurred that out so you couldn't read it. But the minute they got a better image of the placard, it became clear what it was.
Yeah, within a few hours.
I 48 hours, I think it took them to get that far. 48 hours to get it deblurred to the point where they could read the whole thing and realize what was going on. And then they found the archaeological evidence from the late 19th century, where the poor unfortunate child had been discovered.
Yeah, and by the way, that makes at least 3 or 4 times I'm aware of that a dead baby was used to sell a UFO hoax. We've got the Star Child skull, that's a dead baby. We've got the Atacama humanoid, that was a dead baby. And we've got the Roswell slides hoax, also a dead baby. So whenever anybody gets nasty to me about, people in the UFO community aren't slime balls, Stephen, why do you call people slime balls? That's one example that I will give people. If you are willing to use a dead baby's body to sell a fake alien hoax, then you're a slime ball. Estimate of the situation. Love your work, Kevin, and great blog. Have you ever been a part of the Sign Historical Group? I will ask him for you when he's here in person. We're reviewing a previous interview right now, estimate of the situation. But thank you for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. Much, much appreciated. And I think somebody asked me that you needed music, so DM me on Twitter, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, the child had been discovered and that sort of thing. I know, and when you see the whole thing, it's clearly a museum setting. It's not what you would. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Body of a 2-year-old boy. There you go, right there.
Yeah,
and that gave the whole thing away.
Yeah.
But at that point, we had the experts coming out saying, well, this, that, and the other thing. Like anthropologists saying, yeah, it says what they had was it doesn't look like it's human, and it.
Yeah, and for those who don't recall, Jaime Maussan and the people running that hoax got medical experts and everybody to say that that thing in the picture couldn't be human. It was human.
Arms are not quite right, or the hands are wrong, or there's something wrong with that. The whole thing. But the point is, we had that kind of information and that kind of speculation going on prior to the discovery of the placard, or the reading of the placard. And once that was out, it collapsed. I mean,
the whole thing fell apart
I think Tom
instantly.
Held on to the idea it might not be a mummy for quite a while after.
Yes, he did. Yes, because I tried to talk to him, I don't know, several months, maybe even 6 months afterwards, and said something about, have you changed your thought?
Basically, Randy.
And he was
yes.
standing with it still. But Don pretty much
Don
came
called
on
me
and apologized.
Don called me right away and said, what do I do? And I said, admit the truth.
No.
You're duped.
No one was involved in the Roswell Slides hoax. He was involved in an Atacama humanoid.
Tom just really believed in it. I had Tom on my my radio show a year or two later.
Or no, I think.
And I told him, we'll talk about UFOs and what.
I'm going to have to check. I know for a fact no one was involved in the Atacama humanoid thing. He was in the documentary. I don't know if he was ever involved in the Star Child skull. And Tyson B 1994 is here. Someone would have to be crazy to let Dr. Greer operate on them. He goes on space missions with ZZ Top. No, underground base missions. And he saw alien medical technology.
And he said, well, everything's up for grabs. And so we talked a little bit about the Roswell Slides. And he'd pretty much come around to the idea that, it's really not an alien creature. So,
yeah, Don Schmidt was pissed. I think Tom Carey, it took him a while to accept that he got duped and the whole thing was fake.
But the point simply is we've gone through this before. So now we're at the beginning of this process. And we have a guy telling stories, but he's not provided us with much of anything other than a reference to a crash in Italy that apparently is a hoax. And
big red flag, huge red flag.
My speculations on if he was at Skinwalker Ranch, he would have come into contact with these people. Some of the names that have been associated with this are Christopher Mellon, I think, has been involved in some fashion in this, and things like that. But these would be the people he's talking to.
And Lou Elizondo.
Unless we get somebody who can, who's disassociated with some of the other aspects of this and talk about it in the sort of in a pristine way, I just feel it's not going to go very well.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because so far, all that we have heard from this gentleman, Mr. Grusch, is that he has been involved with, let's see, Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, Leslie Kane, Ralph Blumenthal, Ross Coulthard, Lou Elizondo, Eric Davis, and others that were all involved in the TTSA techno scam. Well, Ross Coulthard might not have been involved in that, but this guy is closely associated with all of these UFO people. Where are the real government people that aren't UFO wackadoos that told him things? Because it's my opinion that so far he's being fed disinformation, misinformation, and hoax, fake UFO mythology by all these people that I mentioned. That's my opinion, and I'm allowed to have an opinion until I'm proven wrong. I believe that he is being fed this information from people whose names we are all well aware of. And several of these people have been caught lying or selling provably fake stories before. That's a huge, huge red flag. And if you want to ignore those red flags because you desperately want to believe, great. And by the way, I should take a moment to make sure that I put on the record, I believe there may have been crash retrievals of alien or non-human technology. But I don't believe that we're ever going to get the truth about those things from UFO people who have been selling fake stories for a long time, or UFO people who have provably lied to us many, many times for profit. It's all a money circus so far. And that is proven by the fact that Mr. Grusch apparently already has a documentary deal.
You know, and I'm with Jerry Clark on this. We don't have all the information yet. We're still waiting for that information, but it's being kind of dribbled out the way it was with the Roswell slides, the way it was with the alien autopsy, the way it was with the
Corbell says a lot of
just
things,
three
Peter
examples
Vincent.
of this. Or we could go the other way and say, or the way it was dribbled out with the Project Mogul nonsense. You know, if you want another great ufological hoax from the other side of the spectrum. And we had Charles Moore from Project Mogul basically lying. And we can document
Yeah, he
that
definitely
now.
did glom on to the Roswell slide
When
hoax.
the Mogul answer came about, I had gotten hold of the
You're right, Larry Love.
winds aloft data from 1947, and I supplied
It is
charts
hard to keep track. There's many
Charles
of them.
Moore. And in the original document,
And by the way, that's not the only one. There's also the Alashenka Russian alien hoax. So we've got at least 4 of them. We've got the Star Child skull, the Atacama humanoid, we've got the Roswell slides hoax, and we've got the Alashenka Russian alien hoax. And that Alashenka looked suspiciously a lot like the Atacama humanoid. That's a whole crazy story. We covered that here as well. So we've got at least 4 different sets of people grifting fake alien stories on the bodies of dead babies. I think that is despicable and disgusting. And I, for one, am, even to be honest with you, like, there's a natural history museum in Philadelphia, and they have mummies. They're human bodies. And the last time I visited that museum, I remember thinking, like, this body is just, this human being is just laying here getting gawked at. A dead person. Why don't they just bury this person and let them rest in peace, right? But what we've got in the UFO community is a bunch of people that are so slimy, despicable, and disgusting that they're literally willing to use dead babies to grift for UFO money.
Thank me for giving him the charts, and I got a letter from him asking me for additional charts to create the winds aloft data, and which I figured he was better at it than I would be. But the problem that it turned out to be
I agree, Wave Drummer.
Modified the data. We've got a
try 4 decades, then I'm impressed.
When we got a hold of the document, we can thank the Air Force for this. They got a hold of Dr. Albert Crary's diaries and field notes.
Yeah, I don't know about the
He
laws
was the
about
leader
that,
of the
Randy.
project in New Mexico where they were launching these balloon arrays. And he says the flight that they settled on for proving it was
The Mutter
a
Museum
mobile
is
balloon
in
was flight number
Philly
4.
too. Yeah.
But the documentation says the flight never flew. It was canceled. And yet that kind of information was dribbling out. And Charles Moore insisted, well, no, we didn't really cancel the flight. It was launched earlier than the time we canceled it. And there was all this nonsense going on. And so, we can look at it from both sides of the fence.
Yeah, even the government has hoaxed things.
The information dribbling out. So when Jerry says to me, or writes to me, communicates to me, that we need to kind
Never
of
been uncovered, to
wait
my knowledge, Kevin.
to
Never.
get all the information. Well, he's absolutely correct on that. But we can take.
And by the way, I just republished on our audio podcasts our coverage of the Skinny Bob video. It's called Let's Talk About the Skinny Bob Alien video. And what I'll say about the Skinny Bob Alien video is that I have built an awful lot of very advanced puppets and even some animatronics. I have a background in computer science. I could not recreate that Skinny Bob video to look that good. And by the way, I'm not saying it's a real video of an alien. I'm just saying if it is fake, it is a very, very well done fake. Very, very artistically done fake. I can't get things in CGI to blink that realistically, and I can't get a puppet to blink that realistically and move its eyebrows around. Like, that is a great fake if it is a fake, Kevin. Maybe someday we'll do another show trying to get some CGI artists to look at it and see what they think.
Take a look at some of the stuff we do have and say, does this hold up to, and I was going to say disinterested scrutiny, but I think it's really it's not really disinformation. It's not really disinterested scrutiny because I have a rooting interest in this sort of thing. So I'm a little bit biased on that. But look at the case in a dispassionate way. I'll drop another name here. When I was talking to James Van Allen, the radiation belt guy.
Yeah.
Think so, Estimate?
You
would know better than me.
UFOs, and he said you have to make your investigation dispassionate. You have to look at the evidence. You don't want, we all have our biases when we come to an investigation.
I agree.
But you have to look at it in a dispassionate way. And I'll go on an anecdote here, which is kind of funny, because I asked him about UFO, believing in UFOs. And he says, "Well,
I should have
you're
asked
in the middle of
you.
Wyoming and you hear the thunder.
Hold on.
You don't expect zebra."
Oh, is that Martin Willis that's here? I think so. Yeah, I didn't think that you would mind, considering it's fair use. I'm not just replaying the whole thing. We're talking about it as we go. We'll have a discussion about it. Why don't you send me your email, and I would be happy to have you come here and talk to us about it as well. And I said at the beginning of the broadcast that I was going to ask Mr. Randle to come here, but it seemed to be kind of stupid to say, hey, I really think that what you said on Martin Willis' show is very important. Can you come here and say the same exact thing? So I thought that we could do this and do commentary over it. It is fair use. We're educating the public. It's a transformative work. We're discussing it as we go. Hold on one second. Let me, and by the way, usually I would ask, but I really didn't think that you would have an issue with it. Because I'm sure that a lot of people have played clips from your recent interview with Mr. Blumenthal as well. But this is my email address, and if you'd like to join the show, I'd be happy to have you and hear your thoughts, because mostly we hear from Mr. Randle during this. Well, fair use is fair use, friends. I have a policy of fair use here. Anybody is free to take any clips from the show. And by the way, the link to the original interview is in the description of the video here. And I encourage you to listen to the entire thing. We're only talking about and interested in the Mr. Randle's thoughts on the Dave Grusch situation.
Right. Which means you have to eliminate the money.
By the way, if there's going to be an issue, Mr. Willis, you're free to copyright claim me, but that would be a false copyright claim, and the strike would revert to your channel, because this is clearly fair use. But I don't want anybody upset.
20 years later,
okay,
I saw a story on the news about some zebra who had escaped from a zoo in Wyoming. So you could be in Wyoming and hear the thunder of hoofbeats, and
I'm not
could
sure.
in fact be zebra. I thought it was just kind of coincidental that the analogy he had provided me to came to truth in Wyoming sometime later.
Well, thanks for the donation, Bo. He said Grusch testified for 11 hours to Congress. What do you think about that?
That hasn't been confirmed yet, I don't think.
They've had a lot of people testifying to them.
Yes, and while that is being said, just to let you know, I have let the audience know I have Mario Woods on, who testified for 4 hours and 19 minutes. He's going to be on next week as a special guest coming back on.
Yeah, I would think it would be
We don't know what
okay.
he testified to. We don't know what he said to Congress. We don't know any of that sort of thing. We don't know what information he provided to them.
Yeah.
If he testified to Congress.
Hold on one second, because I just want to check on something for one moment. One moment. Yeah. So, let's get back to it then. I will be monitoring my email, Mr. Willis. You're free to email me. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to be monitoring my email just in case. Let's get back to this here.
Congress, and he was talking about the Italian UFO crash.
Yeah, and by the way, I just wanted to mention that an awful lot of people, I agree with Mr. Randle, an awful lot of people testified before Congress. That doesn't mean that everything they say is the truth. It doesn't mean anything. It means that they testified before members of Congress. There's also been a claim of one of Dr. Stephen Greer's UFO whistleblowers, so-called whistleblowers, in the form of Eric Hecker, claimed that he was testifying before the Senate Intelligence Committee, and then it turns out, no, he didn't. He never testified before any member of Congress. Somebody gave members of Congress documents from him or some kind of evidence from him. He made claims that he testified before Congress. No, he didn't. He gave his information to them, and that's an important distinction.
Well, then his testimony becomes less critical. You know, if he's talking about stuff, there's documents about this Italian UFO crash out there, but they haven't been properly vetted. It's MJ12 all over again, MJ12 kind of thing all over again. So we don't know what he said. We've seen.
Yeah,
I sat through the last.
No, I mean, I should have asked Daniel. You're right. He's right. I should have at least checked in with him and said, "Is this okay?"
To the Senate.
That would have been
on this.
a
I
courtesy.
watched his entire presentation, and I of course analyzed it on the blog. But nobody was really talking about UFOs. They were talking about
Martin, Mr. Willis, I should say. You know, to be very honest with you, I get that you get slightly more views than me. However, I think that this is very, very important. And so I apologize for not, I should have reached out to you. That would have been a kind courtesy that I should have done. And I'm not giving excuses, but I have 2 children home, one of which is special needs for the summer. Usually I shoot somebody an email and say, hey, and I send them the thumbnail and say, hey, I'm going to do commentary and talk about this. Is that okay? And I've never had somebody say no. I should have. So I apologize. But it is fair use. So, and also, I really just think that I have a much different audience than you. And I think that what Mr. Randle was saying during this interview is extremely important, given that he is one of the world's leading experts on UFO crash retrieval programs. So I thought it was important that more people hear this. And I'm not trying to, take content from somebody. I'm trying to amplify the information that you kindly presented to everybody. I've been to some of your live chats. You have a completely different audience than I generally do. And I believe that, we've got 200 live viewers right now watching this. There'll be thousands more views after this. I put in the link to in the description of this video, a link to your full interview and channel. I would highly recommend, if people are interested in any of these topics, to go and support, your show. You have some big guests that we don't generally get here. So, I apologize, and I hope that we're okay. It was an oversight on my part. And you know what? In the future, I will take the time to always, you should take the time to send. Now, there are some people that I have a relationship with, and show hosts, and Mr. Willis is not one of them. But I have people that they know they can use anything from my show, and I know that I can use anything. So I should have reached out to you and apologized. So I apologize for not doing so. And I'd like to have you here as a guest on the show. I would kindly offer to be a guest on your show whenever you would like to do that. We have a lot of friends in common, I'm sure. Yeah, and here we have our moderators are all encouraging our audience here to go check out your show. So maybe we can take this as a learning lesson, and we could both benefit.
Logistics of studying UFOs. They were talking about a lot of stuff, but we didn't get any meat. And then I watched the stupid NASA briefing that went on forever and a week.
Yeah, I think so too,
It just went on endlessly, and we got nothing there. So you're looking at that. So he's testified to Congress for 11 hours, but we don't know what he said. We need the transcripts. We need to know what he said so we can take a look at the information. When they had the first briefing, the two guys from the Department of Navy, whose names escaped me because they were so inconsequential, I just refuse to remember them. But they were talking about.
Yeah, hold on. I'll put it in the.
It was the first briefing.
I'll put a link to Mr. Willis' channel in the description of, or excuse me, into the live chat. So hold on one second. Let me get over there. He sent me an email, said didn't mean to cause such a ruckus. Okay, so look, we're okay, and I apologize. I apologize for not doing so. Crazy day. Yeah, and again, I'm not giving excuses, but I have two children at home, one of which is special needs, and he just had dental surgery, and so he was in nightmare today, a little bit of a nightmare. And yeah, but I learned a lesson, which is that I really should do that. So, and I'm putting the, one second here, I'm going to put the link to Mr. Willis's channel right into the live chat. You should go and check out his channel. He's got a lot of big interviews that, you know, with guests I wish I could get. So hold on one second. Okay. 1 second. Let me get to the channel. And it's just called Podcast UFO Live Shows. And he's been at this a lot longer than me, for sure. But let me get over to the live chat, and I will put a link to Mr. Willis' channel in the description of the video with my apologies here. Let me go over and do that right now. I have to do it in the YouTube live chat, so please just bear with me for a moment. 1 second. And I'll pin it too. Link to Martin Willis Podcast UFO channel. And I will pin that in the live chat so everybody can. Oh, wait a minute. It helps to put the link in. 1 second. Just bear with me, friends. 1 second. Podcast UFO channel. And there's the link. And I will pin that in the description. So it's now pinned in the live chat. And again, my apologies. I will speak to you after the live broadcast.
They were given.
Or I'll send you.
They'd seen nothing. They presented a couple of useless videos and talked around this whole thing. And one of the senators or one of the congressmen asked him about Malmstrom Air Force Base, where the missiles were shut down in 1968. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the guy actually said, well, we don't know anything about that. And later on, he admitted that he did know something about that. So, you know, was there a lie being told there? Was there some misrepresentation going there? Definitely. But what struck me was at least one of the people questioning the witnesses knew a little bit about the topic. And they kind of mealy-mouthed their way around that. But I think the Malmstrom thing is important because of the connection to UFOs, because when the missiles were shut down at Malmstrom Air Force Base, there was also UFO sightings going on in the Belt, Montana area, and Malmstrom's in that area.
Yeah, Malmstrom is a case that many of you have asked me to cover or to do a show on, and it's been on my list for quite some time.
Missile fields are, what, over 100 square miles? I mean, scattered all over the Montana countryside. And when the Condon Committee investigator went to Malmstrom to talk about this and asked about the missile shutdown, the UFO officers, I can't tell you about that. It's national security. Which, if you've got an outside force capable of shutting down the missiles, yeah, that's national security. I'll agree with that point.
Yeah, I guess.
But we don't know what he said during those 11 hours. And we saw the interview.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Is it News Nation?
Yes.
News Nation. Because there's another new one called Newsmax.
And there's the link.
Yeah,
like
News Nation's fairly new.
Yeah, so is Newsmax. But the point is, we got no real details there other than talking about this 1933 UFO crash. But we got no real details. We got nothing there. We don't know who he's talking to. We don't know what crashes he's talking about.
Yeah, and that's a problem because, you know, so far he's mentioned one crash case which turned out to be a hoax. how do we know that the rest of the cases that he is, claiming are real cases and not also hoaxes? This is a really big red flag to me.
I speculated he may have been talking about Aztec. There's documentation, FBI documents, talking about the Aztec UFO crash, for crying out loud.
And that was a hoax.
There's that FBI memo that Hoover wrote in his handwriting, talking about it's probably the Shreveport, Louisiana crash of late June or July of 1947.
Yeah, so it's important to note that the documents, real government documents, exist about a great many UFO crash cases that turn out to be completely and totally fake stories. Just because there are government, I think we have to be very cautious here. Just because there are government documents about a UFO crash doesn't mean that an actual UFO crash actually happened. It doesn't mean that. It means there's some documents. You have to fully investigate each case of so-called UFO crashes before you are fully informed. And my worry is that this poor guy got fed a bunch of stories that we've all heard before, like Aztec or Cape Girardeau, or God forbid, the Trinity UFO crash case that just came crashing down as a fake. There is a lot of UFO crash retrieval cases that are fake. And by the way, we did a history, not so brief history of UFO whistleblowers. It was actually, I called it a brief history, and then people kept sending me messages it's almost 3 hours long, Stephen. So I changed it to a not so brief history of UFO whistleblowers, because I wanted to show that there's been a long list of so-called UFO whistleblowers that were not who they pretended to be, and they never came through with the evidence. And I think that's extremely important, and we have to keep that in mind when evaluating the claims of this new whistleblower. Equally important, I think that you need to know that there is a great history of completely and totally fake UFO crash cases that were hoaxes and attempts to make money and all these different things. So I'll be doing a not so brief history of UFO crash retrievals, UFO crashes and retrieval cases.
And Hoover writes, the military is asking the FBI for help in vetting the witnesses. And Clyde Tolson put on the memo, yeah, we should do that. We should do that. And Hoover was agreeing with this. Yeah, but the Army has to agree to let us give us access to discs recovered in this SW, I think SW case. I think it's the LA case. His writing is so bad you can interpret it like 14 different ways. But he was referring to Shreveport. So we've got a document talking about a crash that you could interpret that says SW for Southwest, meaning the Roswell case, but it really doesn't mean that. But we've got all those kinds of problems, and we have to see the documents. We have to see the evidence.
I agree with Mr. Randle. For all we know, this guy has got documents that are on the blackvault.com or on Above Top Secret, and he thinks they're classified. Maybe they're marked classified. There's so many questions here about this guy.
We have to know who he was talking to. We have to cite the sources. And if you can't do that, then you're doing us no good.
Right. Let's move on to this right here. I would like to talk about, because this is interesting, and I wanted to know what you thought about it. It's let me get over to the right page here. I can't get there. Let's see. Over here we go. Nope. I'm trying to scroll up on this thing.
Obviously, Mr. Willis believes.
All right, this was released by George Knapp, and this George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. This is a Canadian document, and you have read this over. What do you think?
This will be interesting, and some people, including Mr. Willis, may not be aware, but I correctly reported on June 7th that Dave Grusch, Gary Nolan, and Ross Coulthart met with Canadian members of Parliament, including Larry Maguire. And just a little while later, we get this letter from Larry Maguire.
It really doesn't tell us anything.
There you go.
I know, but
it's the same kind. It's the same kind of thing we've seen time and time again. He refers to this evidence from 1950, Is this the Wilbert Smith stuff that Robert Saubacher was talking about 2 decades ago, a quarter of a century ago? Is that what he's referring to? There's nothing in there that really gives us any meat. It's some guy worried about the ramifications if the Canadian government is involved in the reverse engineering of these craft with the Australians, the New Zealanders, the Canadians, the British, and the Americans. And so we've got this sort of thing. You read the document, but there's really no meat to it. It talks.
Yeah, well, there is meat to it. He talks about, I believe that this letter is referencing Wilbert Smith, who was kind of a Canadian UFO wackadoo who, among other things, communicated with aliens from Saturn and Venus from his backyard. You know, so this letter to me is a huge nothing burger, but it was hyped up by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp as a big bombshell, something hugely important. They also pretended that they got we're exclusive. We're releasing a new document. We've got the exclusive. The document was out for weeks before Corbell and George Knapp used it or posted it.
Talks about this 1950 stuff. And I'm wondering, and if you have to remember, Wilbert Smith was a Canadian scientist.
Yes.
Supposedly was involved, said something to Robert Saubacher, and Saubacher talked about that. But Smith was long gone before we got that information from Saubacher. And it turns out Saubacher didn't see or hear anything himself. And so it's secondhand.
Yeah, Wilbert Smith is just repeating stories from Saubacher, saying things, but Saubacher never seen or heard anything himself. So again, we've got secondhand accounts of UFO crashes and things. This is their proof, apparently. You know, it's very weak. It's like skating on very thin ice.
Information. It doesn't do us any good. In reading that letter, he really doesn't give us any specifics, and it's not a classified letter anyway.
Right.
If there were specifics in it that may have been
classified, for once,
He's just saying, well, we need to. He's urging the defense minister to take a look at this stuff just in case, because he doesn't want the Canadian government to offend.
I agree, Patty.
Their partners in the world. We, of course, being Americans, one of those partners. I wouldn't want us to offend the Australians because they have all those nasty creatures that just can kill you in an instant.
Nothing to see here. Yeah.
The question I have though is, why would this person? What would be the purpose to write this if it wasn't something of concern?
Yes, obviously it's something of concern, but we don't know what information he has to cause that concern, other than what we all have at the moment, and that part of it was the whistleblower coming forward and getting this having multiple platforms to talk about this.
Yeah, he does great work.
That we can get to, and he talks about this night that was caught my attention with his reference to the 1950 stuff. And I began to think, you know, what was going on in 1950.
Thanks for explaining nothing, Burger. Yes.
Wilbert Smith, right?
Pardon me?
Wilbert Smith. Wilbert.
Yeah.
Not Wilbur. Yeah.
Yeah, I make that mistake myself.
Who cares?
Yeah.
The guy's dead, and we don't know.
Wilbert with a T.
No, my God, I have it written down on my note, Wilbert Smith. Because I didn't want to forget his name, and I've got it written down. But we got the information from Saubacher. Saubacher didn't know anything himself. Saubacher's talking about how the government was involved in this investigation and doing reverse engineering and all this stuff. And when you pin Saubacher down, I think Jerry Clark pinned him down. I think Stan Friedman tried to pin him down. I think William Steinman got the original information from him, tried to pin him down.
Yeah, that's surprising, right?
And so he was telling, well, he'd heard this stuff, but it turns out that's all. He didn't attend the meetings where the stuff was discussed. He wasn't in the meetings. He heard it from other people. Yeah. So in essence, you know, it's.
So Robert Saubacher heard about UFOs and crash retrievals and things of that nature. And he mentions this to Wilbert Smith. So Wilbert Smith is repeating, that's like third-hand accounts. Well, somebody told me that they heard about it. You know, the problem with all of this is sourcing. You have to get as close to the original source as possible in order to be effective with information. If you're going on a third-hand account of a story, think about that old phone game when you were a child. By the time you get to the third person, the story changes significantly, doesn't it? So there's no evidence here. There's no meat on the bones here. This is all. And Wilbert Smith, I'm sorry, I'm not going to argue with people. Anybody who's telling people they're telepathically communicating with aliens from Saturn and Venus from their backyard is not, to me, a credible source of information. I'm sorry. I even had people arguing with me on Twitter. How do you know that he didn't communicate with aliens from Saturn and Venus? Oh, I don't know. Maybe you should look up the average surface temperature of those planets and then get back to me with how he's communicating with beings from those planets that are completely and totally lifeless and uninhabitable, as far as we know.
Secondhand at best, maybe third hand.
Third hand.
And a number of us investigators are in the same boat. I mean, we've talked to people who were there in the Roswell case. Any number of people who were involved in the Roswell recovery, we've talked to. So we're now secondhand witnesses to that stuff, which is not a way to add to my credibility, but to merely point out that
at least Mr. Randle admits that that's a little wonky, right?
That we have been able to talk to people who were involved on a one-to-one basis. As an example, we've got the Sheriff Wilcox in Roswell. Well, we never talked to him. We talked to his daughter. So when we talk to the daughter, that becomes she was secondhand, we're third hand. But the daughter,
third hand accounts are not quite as good as first hand accounts.
It's not Elizabeth Tolk, it's the other one, whose name I cannot remember at the moment. Geez, it's what happens when you get old, your brain melts.
Yeah.
McGuire. She was in the office when Brazel showed up. So she could talk about what she had seen in the office.
Yeah.
And then other stuff she heard later. But
and Mr. Randle and some of his friends like Don Schmidt and Tom Carey have talked to more firsthand witnesses from Roswell than virtually anybody on the planet. So,
she became secondhand. She became firsthand, and we talking to her. We became secondhand witnesses.
Right.
But with Saubacher, he's at best a secondhand witness, and maybe a third-hand witness, and it's Wilbert Smith. Can't believe I wrote it down right. So I worry that that's the reference, and he's gotten hold of some of that old information that's come up, and we have to remember that sort of thing. But there's nothing in the letter that
there is nothing in this letter
that really corroborates anything.
There's no corroboration there. And also troubling to me with this whole Grusch story is that so far, all we got is recycled old UFO information that has been out there in the ether for, in some cases 20 or more years. These stories of Wilbert Smith have been around for 20 or 30 years, I believe. I'm not sure, but at least 20 or more years, this story of the Italian UFO crash was also out in the ether. So all we've gotten from this so-called UFO whistleblower so far, and the people are pumping this Canadian member of parliament as some kind of proof of his claims, while he's only providing some wackadoo from the 1950s case. So we've got two ancient UFO cases that have been out there in the ether forever, accompanying this so-called UFO whistleblower. If he's blowing the whistle, he's doing a terrible job of it, because there's no new information from him so far. It's recycled old UFO cases, one of which is a proven hoax, and one of which came from a wackadoo who was telling third-hand stories.
Other than he's concerned that there might be reverse engineering going on, nothing about really weaponization, but reverse engineering going on, and he's concerned that it will affect their relations with the other partners.
They transform into flares when we notice them.
It's really more than that, but it's the Australians, the New Zealanders, the Canadians, the British, and the United States.
Yep, mostly gas, just like the stories from UFO wackadoos. And thanks for being a member.
Ongoing research into other things, not just UFOs. So I think the purpose for the letter was to warn, to make sure that the proper government officials in Canada are aware of
Yeah,
this.
it could be right,
possibility.
Randy.
Well, I just want to say toodaloo to everyone over at KGRA Radio. We're going to continue on a little bit because we have not talked about your book, and that's the
Oh,
main
yeah.
reason you actually were
That's
here.
another thing.
So thank you over at KGRA Radio, and we'll see you next week
Yeah.
with Mario Wood.
And by the way, that will conclude his comments on Mr. David Grusch and the so-called UFO whistleblower. But Mr. Randle has a new book coming out. I'm going to get the book, read the book, and invite him here to talk about the book. And I would highly encourage you. I think I have, I don't know, 6 or more of Mr. Randle's books, and I thoroughly enjoyed each and every one of them. So I would encourage you to support Mr. Randle in his efforts to do good research. A lot of you ask me, I get asked all the time, who's credible? Who can you really trust that's not a grifter? Or, you know, I would definitely count Kevin Randle in my very small pool of people who I believe are actually worthy of trust, that do good evidence-based research. And, you know, he's one of the good guys to me. So, you know, support the good guys. Do not support the people who are just selling you fake stories. And unfortunately, the UFO world is just completely and totally overrun with people who are telling you fake stories. It's kind of sad, really. If professional artists, people are still talking about Skinny Bob, we're going to do another show. We're going to do a panel on this. If professional artists were responsible for Skinny Bob, it's hard to understand that why they wouldn't eventually come out and take credit for this masterpiece. Yeah, I agree. If it's done by an artist, it's so good that you would think eventually they would want to take credit, because that thing is just become a legend. The Skinny Bob UFO alien, it's pretty amazing. B. Baker says Kevin Randle is a gem. Yeah, absolutely. Best book on the subject is UFOs and Government: A Historical Inquiry. You may be right. I have that book. I think it's a great book. I don't know if it's the best book, but it's one of the best for sure. Patty Wilhelm, there's a generation that never heard the old stories, and grifters count on that. Absolutely, positively, Patty. I agree with you, and thank you for being a member. Estimate of the situation. It's CGI. You can tell from the movements. It's incredibly well done for its time. Well, I mean, I've done some CGI, and I'm still hesitant to just say it's CGI. And I also did a lot of puppets, and I mean advanced puppets with blinkers and moving eyebrows and things. And like, I estimate that if I had to build a Skinny Bob puppet and try to recreate that, it would cost me months. It would take me months to build a puppet that advanced, that lifelike, and be able to recreate it. So I was kind of convinced that it wasn't a puppet, which only leaves a few possibilities. It's a real alien, it's CGI, or another possibility that I thought of is that it could be a child in prosthetics. And that would actually explain a lot. A child in prosthetics would explain a lot. And that's one explanation for Skinny Bob that I haven't heard anybody else raise. Could I do that with a child in prosthetics? Probably, but I would have to mold the child's face. I would have to build custom prosthetics, including a headpiece, eyepieces, and more. Custom. Everything would have to be built. You know, latex prosthetics would have to be custom built and adhered, and you'd have to get a willing child or maybe a little person to cooperate with you to do that. Yeah, the context. That's my best guess. 100% prosthetics masks. Yeah, and the other thing is, because there's no point of reference in the video, it doesn't have to be a child. Actually, it could be an adult, and then it was sized to look smaller than a human. Through various methods like forced perspective, and I don't know. I'm interested enough that maybe someday I'll try to recreate it, and we'll do a whole new video of me trying to recreate something as good as the Skinny Bob video and talking about the original. But it is strange to me that if it was a hoax, or it was created by an artist. Nobody's ever come forward and said, hey, that was me. Now, I've heard rumors of who created it, but I don't want to say because there's rumors are unconfirmed. But the person that many people say did it is an incredibly talented CGI artist. If anybody could pull it off, this guy probably could. But I reached out to comment to that person, and he said people have been spreading rumors about me. He was very upset that people were saying that he did that because he claimed he didn't. So I don't even want to mention his name. But maybe we'll do a separate, we'll do a new video. We talked about the Skinny Bob. And by the way, you can search in our archive. Go to the live tab and hit that little magnifying glass and just put Skinny Bob. And you'll see the video that we did on it. Quite honestly, that video leaves me stumped. And the fact that I have built some pretty advanced puppets and even puppets for film and TV, I can't make a puppet like that. So I was convinced, well, I could, but it would take me a long, long time to get something that realistic and that good. Could I do it? Yes, but quite honestly, that would really stretch my ability and skills and things to the absolute limit. I'd really have to reach to do something like that with puppetry. I've also done some CGI, but that's not really my specialty. My specialty was practical effects and, real things. So, yeah. It's obvious that Skinny Bob is a CGI composition. There are rigging points on the creature's eyelids, which are very, very telling of its true nature. You could be right. I'm not an expert in CGI. I've done some CGI, but mostly I was doing CGI spaceships and animations and things, so I'm really not an expert. But like all things technology interest me, so I was always interested in digital audio and digital video and digital animation, and I've made some CGI. I'm still trying to learn Blender, and I'm terrible at it. Yes, the obvious generic film noise filters. Yeah, that was hokey. They should have left the film noise out. Yes. If it's the video I'm thinking of, Rick Baker laughed and said he could totally recreate it. Well, yeah, nobody has. A lot of people have said they could, but nobody's put up something quite as convincing, right? Yes, Randy says Skinny Bob might have been done by a special effects guy who did sci-fi shows. Yeah, I agree with you. So I still have some more time to share with you, friends. This will probably be our last live show, but I have some announcements to make, and or last live show for the week, I should say. I have some announcements to make, and we'll take comments and questions from the live chat. I have some more time to share with you. So what do you think of Mr. Randle's opinions on this Dave Grusch case? Does this shed major doubt on Mr. Grusch's story? Or is Mr. Randle completely wrong, which would kind of mean I'm completely wrong too, because I agree with almost everything the guy says. And also we will be doing something from a little more of the believer perspective. I want to get a panel together where we'll be discussing this Dave Grusch UFO whistleblower, and we're going to have some very skeptically minded people, as well as some people that really believe the guy is completely on the level, and this is disclosure, and disclosure's here. I think that would make for a very interesting thing, an interesting sort of panel, to have people of both opinions. We get hammered here sometimes. We're not balanced enough. So I say, okay, we'll try to be more balanced. So this will probably be the last live show for the week, but we're doing some Truthseekers special events, something called Truthseekers Classics. I'm going to take a moment to remind you we're a viewer-supported show, but we'll be right back after a short break taking comments and questions. Please put them in all capital letters, and I have some special announcements you're going to want to hear. We'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Truth Seekers is a viewer-supported show. Now there's a great way to support these broadcasts and show your support. Please be sure and check out our merchandise store. Links to our 2 merchandise online stores are in the links to this video or podcast. The Amazon storefront ships super quickly in the United States, Great Britain, and many more places. Amazon may not ship to your country or location. If that's the case, hit our second merchandise link in the description and visit our Redbubble storefront. Merchandise from our Redbubble storefront ships worldwide, but may take longer than Amazon. We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts, and even pillows. The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey. Thanks for being here. This is Truth Seekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truth Seekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers.
Okay, we are back, friends. So I'll be taking comments and questions from the live chat. Brian Schill is here and says, shout out to Alien Scientist. Yeah, I still have to check in with him. But I'll probably have more time from the cabin this weekend. And those of you who have asked, yes, the bathroom project in the cabin is finally done. So I'm going to make a video walkthrough and show the whole thing completely finished. I can't believe it's finally finished. And we thank Chris Demarez for a kind and generous $9.99 for your Martin Willis Defense Fund. No, I think we're okay. He sent me an email. We're okay. But after the broadcast, I will send him another email and apologize again. Listen, here's the thing, is that technically I can do that all I want, and I don't need to ask permission. However, especially when sharing from another show host in the same genre as you, I should have sent him a message and said, hey, this is what I'd like to do. I hope you're okay with that. It would be fair use, and we will share your channel link and a link to your original video. Most people don't mind. So to be very, very honest, brutally honest, I had quite a day today, and it just didn't occur to me because I was so busy doing so many things today. I should have, especially with some show hosts whose material we've never shared here, because yeah, that could be a copyright claim. People can say, no, I don't want you using it. Or they can argue that, no, I don't care, it's not fair use, or, whatever. Luckily, we worked it out. And, I think we're both okay. I'd be happy to have Mr. Willis here as a guest because he's an interesting character that I've never spoken to in person. So, and you guys know I'm kind of selfish with that. Like, I could talk to people on the phone or by Zoom call, but I'd rather just bring them on the show and then share it with all of you. So maybe we'll get to do that. I'll send him a message. And again, the link to his channel is pinned in our live chat, and the link to the original video is in the description of our video here. He gets a lot of interviews with a lot of interesting people like Ralph Blumenthal recently, and Kevin Randle, a lot of other bigger names that you may have heard of. Support people that are making content around this subject that you all apparently like so much. But I did learn a lesson, and thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support, Chris. I appreciate it. But I did learn a lesson, and here's the thing. Do you know why a lot of people are not as kind as they should be or could be? It's because being kind, and that would have been kind to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm doing this show. It's something that I should have done. I should have taken the time to be kind. That's why people don't do it, because it's time and energy that I just did not have today. I kind of been feeling like I'm on house arrest here because I got my two sons are home all day and all night now. And they could be difficult to manage, especially my special needs son, who's 11 now, and quite honestly, had some meltdowns today over stupid things, but he just had dental surgery. So I know he's not really feeling well, and, putting out a lot of fires today. And the thought did occur to me, as I recall, like maybe I should email Mr. Willis and let him know that I'd like to do this. And then I got sidetracked by, I think, milk being spilled all over the kitchen by one of the boys or something like that. And then I was on to other things. I'm cycling through our podcasts situation, our audio podcasts. We're reposting a lot of our old episodes, a lot of people are asking for more audio podcasts. So we're putting a bunch of them every day now, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure if we're going to continue with that. Now on to my other announcement is that we're going to be doing something new here on our channel, Truthseekers Classics. We have, I don't know how many live broadcasts we have done here, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And many of you will ask me to cover a topic we've already covered or other situations. Plus, we only broadcast here. Currently, I'd like to try to do 3, max 4 live broadcasts per week here, which leaves other nights where people are saying, a few people have suggested maybe you can replay old episodes of your favorites. So we're going to do that. But then there's also the just kind of fixing an error that I made, which was we investigated this psychic healer called Sarah Adams. And I think this is one of the best stories I've ever done on this girl, Sarah Adams, who claims to be a psychic and a medium, and she talks to angels and aliens and, higher dimensional, interdimensional beings, and she has the ability to heal people and diagnose people's illnesses and all these other things. She can open stargates. She's teaching people how to open stargates for $1,500. She was selling fake medbed sections, spoiler alert, for medbeds that didn't even exist in the real world. It was a Zoom call where apparently during a Zoom call, she's going to take people up through a stargate into a mothership, meet the aliens, and get a medbed session. But we did a full investigation into her. And not only that, but I sent her a fake cancer patient. And what do I mean? I mean that this girl claimed that she could diagnose people's illnesses even over the phone, and she could heal people and all these other things. So I got together with an old mentalist friend of mine, and I sent to her a completely and totally fake terminal cancer patient just to see if her superpowers would work and if she would know that he didn't have cancer. Because if she can diagnose people's illnesses over the phone, she should know if they have cancer or not. And so we did a complete and full investigation into this girl, Sarah Adams. Fast forward about a year after we started covering her, and I did a couple of pieces on her scams. I'm saying they're scams. She was selling people fake medbed sessions with this Pete and Roxy couple from Australia. She was involved with this Arcturus Ra and his fake medbed that was made out of a tanning bed, and he glued magnets and organite and sand in it. So somehow it's now a med bed. And they were going to sell sessions in this completely unproven medical device that could be dangerous. This guy glued hundreds and hundreds of neodymium magnets inside this thing. And you would lay in this thing, and you've got all these neodymium magnets all around your brain. Do you know what that could do to a human brain? It's very dangerous. So we did a whole bunch of shows on this girl. And then one day, I think by FedEx, I got a legal threat letter. And that may be the letter that some idiot was saying came from, let's see, David Wilcock, Richard Dolan, Corey Good, and somebody else, Linda Moulton Howe. Remember some slimeball show host lied to everybody and say, he got cease and desist letters from all these people. Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, Jimmy Church, and was it David Wilcock, he said. And no, those people never sent me a legal threat letter, but this girl, this fake psychic, did. And so out of an abundance of caution, she threatened to sue me and all this stuff. If, so out of an abundance of caution, I took the videos, all of them that covered her down. I think there's 10 of them. And I got extremely busy at that time with some other things. And so I took the threat letter to a real lawyer who looked into it. And what we found out is that the legal threat letter that she sent me that was supposedly from a lawyer, it wasn't from a real lawyer. It was from a guy that did have a law degree, but he wasn't admitted, or he wasn't able to sue anybody because he wasn't a member of any bar association or anything in the United States. It turns out that this guy was just one of her friends. So she wanted to stomp all over our free speech here and say, you, Stephen, can't say that my superpowers aren't real or I'm going to sue you. That's essentially what the letter said. So like I said, I took the videos down. I sought legal counsel. And by the way, I have a real lawyer and everything, which costs me money, and it's unfortunate that I have to spend money for completely fake threats of lawsuits from a fake lawyer. But this is what happened. And so after finding this out, and talking to the lawyer, and the lawyer's kind of reviewing things and going, well, so you just said that her superpowers aren't real, and she's calling that slander, Stephen. And I go, I know, like, what am I supposed to do? And he said, well, it's up to you. You can leave the videos down, or you could put them back up and, let her go to court in front of a judge and a jury and prove that you're wrong when you say her superpowers are fake. And so I meant to put the videos back up. It kept slipping my mind. Other things going on. Very busy here. I never put the videos back up. So now we're going to correct that error. And just a message to anybody who wants to threaten me going forward. I have one of the best lawyers you could have. So if I have to, I don't want to spend money on lawyers. That's not something. But my point is, I am not going to be silenced or intimidated. I'm not taking videos down when you claim I slandered you for, having the audacity to test your superpowers. And by the way, we tested her superpowers, and I have ample evidence that she's a fraud. So let the chips fall where they may. That was a big error on my part, because once you sort of surrender to somebody who wants to stomp all over your free speech, other people will think that they can equally. All they have to do is send you a letter and make threats, and you'll take videos down that are completely and totally 100% factually correct and truthful. And I'm not doing that. I'm just not going to do that. So in order to correct everything, we're going to put those back, and she can do what she's going to do. But, again, she's going to have to come to the state of Pennsylvania. She's going to have to prove that I did things with malice and forethought, and that I said things I knew were not factually accurate. And it's a whole big thing. One of the most expensive things that you could do is to try to, sue somebody for slander or defamation. Good luck with that, and it could take years, and, it's this whole thing. But most of me thinks that this girl's a fake psychic with a fake lawyer. We're putting the videos back and let the chips fall where they may, right? Yes, she brags about driving her Jaguar. And Daniel, message me on Twitter. I'm going to tell you where she got that Jaguar, and you're going to laugh your ass off. You're really going to laugh when I tell you where she got the Jaguar. She didn't get it. She didn't buy it for herself. Let's just leave it at that, or so I hear, right? No, we haven't done that yet either. That is on my list of things to deal with. And I promise you we'll have an update on that next week. Sedona is cult central. Yeah, well, she got run out of Sedona, or so I hear, allegedly. That's how much of a fake psychic she is. They don't even want her in Sedona, apparently. Shout out to Truthseeker Steve. Thank you for the truth. I've seen a real UFO, but I don't believe these UFO grifters anymore. Thank you, Steve. Well, thank you, Brian Schill, and nice to hear from you. Thank you. And yeah, listen, I had my own personal experience. That's why I'm here. But just because you've had an experience doesn't mean that you need to believe everybody that is claiming experiences, or everybody that's telling you the real truth about the aliens and the UFOs, because most of them are lying, scamming, grifter con artists. And we can demonstrate that. And we do demonstrate that here. Who do you think is feeding Grusch his UFO lines for his story? Well, if I had to guess, I would say the people that we know for sure that he's connected to. Gary Nolan, Ross Coulthart, Lou Elizondo, Eric Davis, and others. The usual cast of characters. Many of the people who brought us the TTSA techno thing, not Ross Coulthart, but I think that he is being manipulated. And I think that, unfortunately, this guy truly believes that all this is real. And until we see the documents and see his so-called until we see his actual sources, prove to me that it's not the usual cast of characters feeding him this stuff. Let's see the sources. He won't share the sources, right? Wellness wisdom. Fair use is fair use, but I don't think fair use includes playing. I don't know what that means. Playing a in. No, what we did is fair use because we offered commentary. It's a transformative work. We're educating the public. We're talking about the video that we're sharing. What we did is fair use. We do it here all the time. I heard Stephen was doing the Lato air hump. No. But I will tell you that I had a few people message me and say, oh my God, he's doing a Cambion. I go, what do you mean? That's not something I'd ever do. And they said, but it looks like something you would do, right? He kind of went nuts. Remember how I used to be so angry and animated, right? Prepared for an iced coffee tomorrow, right? Yeah. So comments, questions for me, please put them in all capital letters. And we've already got this one. Yeah, we're gonna I will have an announcement about that next week. I'm sorry it took me a little longer, but we've got the money to be on that site for a few months. We're going to see if Corey Good can make, his promise that his platform is censorship free. And we're going to see if that includes when you're on his platform being critical of him. That should be awesome. She should have claimed James Randi's $1 Million Challenge. Nobody ever did that. Nobody ever did that. And by the way, I knew and met James Randi and talked to him many times. Did she get lame Tata made in India or the British? Well, I don't know what kind of Jaguar the fake psychic girl has. But in any case, we're going to be rebroadcasting those episodes, an entire story arc. Like, if you want to hear a great story of a fake psychic getting ripped apart for being a fraud, I think this is one of the best stories that we've ever done. I think there's 10 videos. This Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time is part 1. This Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time is part 2. And this Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time is part 3. And after we finished with the strange case of Sarah Adams, we'll be doing that more. We're going to play some replays so everybody can come and enjoy the live chat. And some of you may be re-experiencing it, but to most of you, it's not a rerun because you never saw it in the first place, right? Ivana Rios thinks Luis Elizondo is one of the people. Yes, absolutely. Luis Elizondo is one of the people feeding this guy stories. I believe that he fed that story of the Italian UFO crash to somebody else previously. She should have claimed James Randi's. Yes, we got that one. Thoughts on submarine stupidity? Well, first of all, it's an incredible tragedy. But second of all, there's a real problem because apparently that submarine was only rated to go down to 14,000 feet, I think. And the Titanic wreck is at 40,000 feet. So why are you charging people $250,000 to go to a wreck site that you can't even get to? And also, military submarines don't go to 40,000 feet, I believe. So I think it was poorly planned, poorly executed, and stupid of anybody to just think they're going to get in some, submarine that's not rated to do what they're trying to do with it and live. And, it's kind of sad because those people didn't know that the $250,000 that they paid didn't include a round trip ticket. And unfortunately, it's pretty clear now, isn't it, Spooky? Like they found the wreckage and stuff. So those people all lost their lives, unfortunately. John Martin, U2, and UFO and ET intelligence. How about interviewing somebody who actually interacts with UFO and ET intelligences on a regular basis? I think he's talking about him. And John Martin, are you the guy that sends me the really grainy pictures that I can't do anything with? Or is that somebody else? I apologize if I'm confusing you. Why don't you email me and send me some examples of a material that you have to share? And I will get back to you later this evening. I promise. And thank you for the question. I'm guessing that Good will blow his stack when he finds out who's uploading to his website. Yeah, and well, that's the thing. It took me a little while because we have to work out how to sort of not make it completely obvious that it's me. So, but I found a way, and we're going to do it. Seems money can't buy brains. Yeah, rich fish food. You couldn't pay me $250K to get into one of those things. I went in a little one, a little submersible in the Delaware River once, but I did that because it was for sea explorers, which is like Boy Scouts but boats, you know. And my dad was a Navy guy, so he made us do this. It was so dorky, Daniel. We had to dress up in these Navy uniforms and stuff. But I got to ride in a submarine, but it only went like 20, 30 feet down. But it was interesting. It had lights and stuff on it, right? You know, interesting stuff. But I wouldn't try to go to the bottom of the ocean in one. Hell no. No. That's one of my big fears. There's two ways I don't want to die. Drowning and burning to death. Right? Those are two ways I don't want to die. So I try to avoid anything that might make that a possibility, you know? Pretty sure they died on descent. Yeah. Yeah. It apparently an hour into their journey, it imploded from pressure. And, you know, those people should have a tremendous lawsuit because somebody involved in that company should have known that that thing was not going to make it. Right? Yeah. Feel bad for the 19-year-old kid. Yeah. It's 12.K. 12,500 feet. I don't know about that. Let me see. Titanic wreck depth. And why did that thing implode 1 hour in? Yeah, about 12,500 feet. I could be wrong. I saw a meme that said it was 40,000 feet. How deep was the missing Titanic observable submersible? So the submersible was supposed to go to 9,000 feet, owned by OceanGate. Well, here, I'll share this. If you guys, everybody, people wanted me to do a show on this, but I thought it's not our, you know, like our usual wheelhouse. Oh, come on with these ads. So a sperm whale only goes to 7,300 feet maximum depth. They were going to 9,000 feet. Yeah. It's designed to take people to 13,123 feet. Well, it was designed for that, but why did it implode then? I don't really understand it, you know? I never knew this. An octopus can only go down 5,000 feet. And sperm whales only go down 7,000 feet. Grand Canyon is 8,000 feet. They're going down 8,000. Yeah, I mean, then if it was designed to withstand, but it didn't look to me like it was designed to withstand those kind of depths. And, you know, I really don't understand why this tragedy happened. I'm going to just Google how deep does a nuclear submarine go, and we'll see. A nuclear submarine can dive to a depth of about 300 meters or 12,400 feet. So you mean to tell me that an independent company designed a submersible that can go deeper than a nuclear submarine? But thank you for pointing that out. See, we all learned something. We learned something. Well, actually, this is a misnomer because apparently this thing was controlled by a PlayStation controller, but somebody on Twitter said that no, that's very common for submersibles and other vehicles to be controlled by that. It sounds strange, but that's a pretty standard control system, apparently. Thoughts on Betty and Barney Hill case? The book by her nephew is very detailed. Yeah, I think it's a great case. I was always very interested in it. I love that movie with James Earl Jones. And I can't remember the name of the female actress, but she later played Roseanne Barr's mother on the television show Roseanne. There was a TV movie. And I talked in great length about the Betty and Barney Hill case to Stanton Friedman before he died. And he and I disagreed on the star map, and he was never able to really let that go, that the star map evidence was not right. But one of the things that always made me think the case was likely that something happened to these people is if you listen, there's audio tapes available of those hypnotic regressions, and those people are screaming and yelling and totally terrified while they're reliving the experience. So yes, Martin D. Truthseekers, I have been corrected. Somebody posted a bad meme because somebody put a meme on Twitter that said that the Titanic depth was 40,000 feet and that the submersible was only designed to go 12,000 feet or something. So, yeah. Right on, Steve. I've studied so much of this topic to learn about what I saw. It's real, but now I see the spin narrative so many put on this topic, thanks to you and Dark Journalist and Jeremy. Great. Well, I'm in good company. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for the excellent comments. I watched The Abyss and said, I'm good with all that. Yeah, I remember that movie. Great early CGI. Ocean's Gate claims Titan sub was designed to go up to 13,123 feet. So they should have been able to get right on top of the Titanic. But then, you know, you also think about that's a grave site. So is it really like, should you really be taking $250,000 to show somebody a mass grave site down at the bottom of the ocean? I don't know. That's kind of an ethical judgment call. I wouldn't do it. I would let those people rest in peace, but it is what it is. Yeah, probably better than being stuck on the bottom waiting to die. Yeah, it must have been some kind of a failure of the hull system then. If it was designed to go that deep and it popped 1 hour in, and for those unaware, if you're going to go to those incredible depths, you're not going to that depth in an hour. They have to do a slow descent so that your body slowly acclimates to the pressure, I think, or you get the bends, right? I don't know. I used to be into this stuff. I used to snorkel and scuba dive a lot. But after the brain aneurysm, it's not recommended that I scuba dive anymore because of the pressure. So I haven't scuba dived. My wife and I still snorkel, though, a lot off of coral reefs in Florida, usually. A place called Singer Island and Peanut Island are our two favorite places in Florida. Singer Island is right off the coast of West Palm Beach, and Peanut Island is not far from there. You can take a ferry and get over there, and there's these huge coral reefs just full of fish, so you don't have to go real deep. Apparently the glass dome was only rated for 1,300 feet. That could have been why the thing blew up then. How could they do that? Why would they put a glass dome in that thing that's only rated for 1,300 feet if you're going to go down to 14,000 feet or 13,000 feet or 12 or even, 2,000 feet? You can't go beyond. Yeah. They only tightened 17 of the 18 bolts of the dome. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more about this story. And it's not going to be good for the people. Obviously, this is human error. Obviously, there's an awful lot of negligence going on, right? And using building steel as ballast sounds like it was a right bodge job. Yeah, and it's a tragedy for those people who lost their lives. I feel terrible for their families. I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of the ship, and he steamed at full speed ahead into an ice field. James Cameron. Yeah. I think that they were. Maybe I'm mishearing. I've been reading some articles. I think that people tried to warn them that thing couldn't handle what they were trying to do with it, but they went ahead with it anyway. Dr. Ballard did a great job documenting the whole wreck site. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Interesting story. The sub is assembled correct with no faulty Awards was safe. I don't know. They lost contact at 1,300 meters after the crew signaled a fault and began to ascend. Ooh. Maybe they should have had like a line attached to it, or I don't know. I would never have gone down in that thing. The guy who walked away because of safety concerns must feel touched by an angel. Yeah, I heard that one guy decided not to go, DJ 808, right at the last minute, and he cited safety concerns. Feel no sympathy for them. Well, come on, they're human beings. Seems like having an ELT would be a good idea. Yeah. The black and white video of an alien in 3D, I can tell by the movements. I don't know what that is. The ballast usually isn't critical. Well, maybe. Moody Mongols here says about the pressure by the Titanic wreck. It's equivalent to the weight of the Empire State Building on each and every inch of the sub. Yeah, that's an awful lot of pressure. I would have never went in that thing. Oh, he tweeted. Yeah, that guy is lucky if he walked away. The Titanic will be gone in 20 years based on decomposition. It is a site that should be respected. Yeah, it's unfortunate. The line would weigh too much. 12,000 feet of steel cable is a lot of weight. Yeah, could be. Yeah. I think that the whole story is a tragedy, though. I feel terrible for the families of those people. And, shame on the people that didn't do their due diligence before offering people a ride in their submarine. Like, if you're going to be I don't know. I just think it's incredibly dangerous to go to that depth. That's why nuclear submarines don't go that deep, right? Nuclear submarines don't even go as deep as they were attempting. And look how those things are built and constructed, right? Stephen, I'm not far from your favorite snorkeling spot in Florida. Oh, that's interesting. West Palm Beach is not really our favorite. Singer Island is, because West Palm Beach is like very commercial and busy, and there's all these like designer stores that we care nothing about. There's a little island off of the West Palm Beach called Singer Island. It's my idea of paradise. White sand, blue waters, warm water, coral reefs. What more can you ask for? Last time we stayed there, and by the way, we're going to be going back soon, I think. We haven't been there in years. The last time we stayed there, we stayed at a Hilton and got upgraded to this huge, wonderful suite because there was a hurricane or something. There was a close call of a hurricane. And we decided to go anyway. Everybody else must have canceled their vacation plans. We got there, the whole hotel was empty. So we got an upgrade to a better suite, and it was beautiful. We had a great time. And we'll be going back there soon. But I think next time we're in Florida, Patty, it'll be for Disneyland. But I'm hopeful we can go to Disneyland for 3 or 4 days and then go to Singer Island for 3 or 4 days. We'll see how that shakes out, though. You never know. Right? Crypto Alchemist says, it is true. Prayers are with the lost souls and their families of those lost. Yeah, it's a pretty big tragedy. They don't respect pharaohs, so why Titanic passengers? Yeah, you're right. The ship is being eaten by bacteria that can eat the iron from the hull. I never heard that before. My brother's really big on the Titanic. I'd be interested to see what he thinks of this submarine disaster. I haven't spoke to him in some time. The next thing we will hear is sabotage speculation soon. Could be Chris Johansson. If you were stupid enough to get into that thing, you get what you get. That is why no sympathy. I feel the same way for the Everest climbers. You get effed up, Surgeon Wright, for being an idiot. Yeah, I guess, but they didn't sign up to be murdered at sea. Wonder what would actually do to the human body. I am starting the first commercial barrel over Niagara tour, 100K a barrel, top of the line fiber. Yeah. They had 7 rudimentary ways to get back to the surface. None of it mattered, as the sub's design was the most important flaw. Dead in 1/100th of a second, faster than nerves talk to the brain. Well, at least they didn't see it coming. So, that's good. They probably just were dead instantly and didn't even feel anything, or let's hope so. It's just a tragedy. I feel terrible for those people. They had families. But then did anybody hear that one guy's stepson was asking like an OnlyFans model to hang out with them for a half hour or something, or sit on his lap for a half hour? Like, dude, you're going to use that to the death of your stepdad to try to hook up with an OnlyFans model? That's the world we live in, though. In our Discord, there's a link to info from the Nuke Sub T expert that talks about what happens to the human body at that depth. And then I don't want to know, but thanks for sharing there, B. Baker. The 19-year-old was, according to his mother, very apprehensive. He only went to please his father. Oh, that's terrible. Kid's only 19 years old, lost his life. It was carbon fiber shell over a titanium hull. Rather horrifyingly, I discovered they would have been able to hear the carbon delaminate first. Oh, that's terrible. Didn't know you had a Discord. Yes, we do. Come and join it. Come and join the Discord. Also, want to remind everybody to follow me on Twitter. It's at Stephen Cambion. Twitter is the best place. I announce all the shows. You'll know in advance what's coming. When we have special events, I start promoting them before the events on Twitter. And our next special event will be us running these Truthseekers Classics, which is this investigation into a psychic healer. And I'm telling you, I think that was one of my best cases. We really investigated her. We got a great gotcha moment because we sent her a fake cancer patient. And by the way, she was supposed to come and do an interview, but after we sent her the fake cancer patient, she started getting cold feet and she didn't want to do the interview. We did interview her manager, though, a guy named Tajinder, I think. And so anyway, the whole story arc is going to play out on our channel again. I think it's a great story. And if it's a great story about somebody investigating and busting a completely and totally fake psychic fraud, which is one of the things we do here. There were sensors for the hull, and James Cameron pointed out, why have the sensors when there's nothing you'll be able to do if they go off? Ooh, at least they ended quickly instead of left for days in the dark cold, only to suffocate after several days of living in horror and fear. Yeah, that's terrible. Can't believe they would debate from what is proven to work. Yeah, and thanks for being a member, Robbie D. 130.50 bar. Squishy. Okay. Fascinating story. There's a guy who wrote a book on it. Yeah. MK Ultra Prime is here, and thanks for being a member. Says Mr. Ian, yeah, there were sensors for the hull. Why have the sensors? Yeah, and thanks for being a member. There is a Titanic conspiracy theory. Most people don't know they built two, and one wrecked, and they switched the names of the ship and crashed the one that was wrecked, and JP Morgan canceled his ticket. I have heard that JP Morgan canceled his ticket, and a bunch of rich people got off of that thing before the disaster happened at the very last stop on land before they continued the journey. Yeah, it collapsed faster than humans can perceive, so they had no idea. Well, yeah, the whole thing is a tragedy. My heart goes out to the families of victims and to the victims. Being adventurous is risky. I can tell you that myself. You can be adventurous. Certainly, if that would have worked, that would be an adventure of a lifetime. Like I went down and I saw the wreck of the Titanic, but you're going to take risk. And somebody mentioned climbing Mount Everest. So many people die trying to climb Mount Everest that it's incredibly dangerous. It would be the adventure of a lifetime, but again, it's incredibly dangerous. So as for me, I've got a beautiful wife and two beautiful children. I'm not taking major risks, still think life's an adventure, but I'm not personally taking any adventures that may end in death, premature death, right? I would prefer to be here for my children growing up. So I will pass on the high risk adventures. Not long ago, some friends of mine were going skydiving and wanted me to go. I'm like, no, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. And besides, they were doing that where they strap you to some instructor dude, and I was like, no, I don't want to do it like that, no. And besides, there is something crazy, right, about jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. I'll stay here. You guys have a good time, right? I think that it would take the airplane crashing for me to want to jump out of an airplane, like engine failure, and you've got 5 minutes to decide to jump out or not. Then if I had a parachute, for sure I would. But if the plane was in perfectly good condition and the engines were fine, I don't think so. But I felt differently in my younger years, of course. So we have done our due diligence for tonight. Friends, we've done our due diligence for the week. We'll be back Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern with this premiere of these new Truthseekers classics. Most of you haven't seen those shows, so they're new to you, and I hope you'll be here. I'll be at the cabin, but I'll be in the live chat from the cabin tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you'll be with us. So that's all we got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambian. Good night, and God bless all of you.